Greetings, Culturians, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I have to talk to you about Spider-Man Brand New Day, because as optimistic as I was in my previous two box office videos, hopefully you got a chance to see those, I was completely wrong. There was no way I thought that this film could close in on $1 billion as quickly as one weekend. Not only that, it took away the enormous lead that the Odyssey had in just one weekend and crushed it, and went right by it like it was standing still. In fact, there's no doubt that Spider-Man Brand New Day is going to get to $1 billion before the Odyssey does, and that's even with having 0 IMAX theaters. But we've got more to talk about, because along the way, there's a whole glorious story to tell with not just the first weekend days, but also with some prognostications from some people who should be very embarrassed right now. So stick with me, guys, because here we go. Now, first and foremost, Culturians, you know this. Double check you're subscribed. Hit the subscribe button down below if you're not. It's absolutely free. Hit the thumbs up button and double check that you've turned on the bell notifications for all notifications. Now, the story we start with is the first day, which really is like the first 3 days, because just like with many films this year, we've started off with some Amazon Wednesday previews. Then we've had a secondary set of actual previews on Thursday, and then we get the Friday numbers. Now, you remove the preview days that were there before the Friday numbers, and it's still really, really impressive. This film was clicking very well. In fact, I was looking at maybe a $400 million opening, but I was wrong. And that's okay. I was wrong in the right direction. We'll get to that in just a moment. But as you see here from this article from Anthony D'Alessandro on the 1st of August, not even as I'm recording this on the 2nd of August, and of course you're seeing this either on the 2nd or the 3rd, depending upon whether you're a member or not. Oh yeah, by the way, member perk, if you're a member of the channel, you get to see this stuff just half a day early about. Let's get into it though. Spider-Man Brand New Day sets all-time first day high with 168 million US. Could beat Avengers Endgame, 357 million weekend record. This is the Saturday AM update. Now, I have a few small problems with this, because the number right now we know is going to get adjusted and revised, and we'll get to that in a minute. I promise you, stick around. You're going to want to know where we're at and where we're going. You're also going to know how close to $1 billion we are as far as the global earnings, but let's stick with domestic. This thing most likely will end up beating Avengers. Why do I think that? Because I think, and I could be wrong, when you're watching this, it may not look like it, but as of the Monday revisions for the weekend, I think we're going to see it creep up to either meet or surpass what Avengers did in its opening weekend. Now, mind you, the $357 million record is substantial, but I do truly believe that this can, if not it already has, surpassed it. So back to the article now. Anthony summarizes it to say it's a game of Marvel beating Marvel, except not really. It's Sony beating Marvel, although Marvel does collect about 25% of the purse. Now, it also has to kick out 25% of the expenses. It also has an advantage when it comes to the actual physical merchandise, with the exception of the video games, who, well, Sony gets to keep that. So the big winner is going to be the Spider-Man video games in the end, I believe. Maybe some of the licensees. But, you know, as far as Spider-Man merchandise, I don't know. Can Marvel really, surpass what Sony's going to earn on this? I don't think so. Anyway, setting that aside, you got 168 million. It's feasibly outstripping the previous first day record owned by the Avengers, and that's correct. But if Brand New Day gets above $105 million on its Saturday, which I think it did, we'll take a look at those numbers in just a moment, and then does what we would expect for a Sunday, then it could accumulate enough to beat out the Avengers Endgame, which I think it will. And what's really sad is at the end of the year when Avengers Doomsday comes out, do you think that's going to easily cross $1 billion or have the same kind of earnings potential? I don't think so, because I keep hearing there's no Spider-Man in Avengers Doomsday, which is going to be a problem. Now, moving on to Anthony's Sunday update, which I think is worthwhile as far as reading. Spider-Man Brand New Day nearly topples Avengers. I think it already has. Sorry. I know Anthony doesn't want to write this, and I know a lot of Disney apologists don't want me to say it, but I think that this film has already surpassed Avengers Endgame. And that's okay. You have inflation, and inflation bros can roll in and talk about that. You have ticket costs increasing. You have a lot of factors that play into that. But, for the pure merit of money, well, maybe it's not worth quite as much as it was, but it's the only way you have bragging rights anymore because the studios selfishly don't want us to keep track of butts and seats, which I think is kind of important, but that's just my opinion. Moving on into the article, it's close. Oh, so close. As Sony and Marvel Studios Spider-Man Brand New Day with a $355 million nearly ended Avengers Endgame's run for the best opening weekend ever in North America. The Marvel Studios Russo brothers pick still holding a 3-day title with $357.1 million. But for Sony, there's no problem with being second. They beat their own all-time studio record, except I still don't think they did. I think they beat their all-time record and they beat Marvel Studios, Kevin Feige, Russo brothers, whoever you want to attribute that to. I still think these numbers creep up. When we get to the end of Monday, double check with me. Let me know in the comments section below if I was wrong. But if you have a strong hunch that I'm right, also let me know in the comments section below. But this film opened in the historic Cinerama Dome Theater, which is a great way for that to return to regular use with this enormous film. Now, look, I mentioned the Odyssey at the beginning of the video. I want to say it again. This is going to beat Odyssey to $1 billion. Not only that, it already not only caught up with the Odyssey, who's been running now for 3 consecutive weekends, but it surpassed it in just one weekend. And we'll get to those final numbers in a minute, so don't go anywhere. There's more to this, way more to this. In fact, we need to talk about what Variety is saying in their article, and they've just upped their numbers also to $355 million. Mind you, a lot of them had lower numbers earlier in the day on Sunday as I'm recording this. Now, Spider-Man Brand New Day swings to mind-blowing $355 million debut. I'm going to refresh this. Let's see what happens. Stayed the same. Second biggest opening weekend in box office history. Now, it's important for them to print this because if they're wrong, well, they're on the record as giving this information. This is likely what you're going to see when you do a search. And maybe the new numbers don't come to light till Monday, and maybe it's out of the public zeitgeist that, well, this film, the 8-legged superhero, crawled past the Marvel Studio monster of Avengers Endgame. But that's just my way of looking at it. A little bit cynical, but a little bit practical as well. Now, Brand New Day soaring to $355 million is a big deal. It nearly swung past 2019's Avengers film, but I'm gonna say it for the third time this video. I still think it did, and that's okay. But at the same time, this comes with an enormous amount of embarrassment for certain prognosticators and maybe for the Odyssey and the people who touted that film so much with so much glazing, because it wasn't a 10 out of 10 film. It still hasn't done the kind of numbers that we're going to see out of this amazing superhero film. And to anybody that's ever argued that superhero fatigue was real, well, it's bad movie fatigue. That's real. This Luis Fernando fella, by the way, this is from an article that I'm going to show you here in just a moment, but this was from last year, saying that Supergirl would likely surpass Spider-Man Brand New Day. In fact, he's got a lot of comparatives as you go through this particular tweet, which is still live on Twitter, or X if you prefer. And he always highlights the thing with Wonder Woman, again, saying that the circumstances are repeating themselves from back when Wonder Woman was doing very well, and predicting that Supergirl would be posed to not only face a similar slate, but have similar results. And of course, this article has been widely posted on the internet without proper context, not the original production here at Fortress of Solitude at .co.za. And this was from the writer Jared Saunders, and you can see this picture all over the interwebs saying, box office analysts predict Supergirl will outgrow Spider-Man Brand New Day. It will parallel Wonder Woman 2017's success, suggesting Supergirl could soar past Spider-Man Brand New Day. Now, I am going to give this fella the benefit of the doubt. And I'm just going to say he didn't exactly say it. He insinuated it. He presented the argument for it, setting up an opportunity to capitalize on that at a future date. A lot of people do that. That's how you kind of hold space in social media, and it's how you get some clout if you're right more than you're wrong. Now, the box office analyst article, though, appears everywhere, including Instagram, and it didn't go particularly well for this particular creator. Let's take a look at that here. You see, this is on Instagram. It's also been on X. It's also been a lot of other places and threads and stuff like that. And Updates for DC says, if you think you're a loser, just look at this box office analyst prediction. You realize that there's even bigger losers out there. Spider-Man Brand New Day is expected to earn nearly 3x Supergirl's entire worldwide box office in its opening weekend alone. And I'm going to say it's more than 3x. At least as far as the domestic is concerned, it may be around 3x, but my goodness, this has got to be embarrassing. And look, it's a bold prediction, and it comes paired with some plausible deniability, and I'll grant that. But what I can't grant is the actual performance in the box office, except we're going to take a look at these numbers. Spider-Man Brand New Day, $355 million domestic. It expanded auditoriums into 4,487. That's up from about 1,897, which was the last time the numbers updated before they ran this update for the full weekend. $355 million gross. Now, we're going to get down to the brass tacks of how it actually did. But if you look at that in comparison to the Odyssey actually has a better domestic gross to date in 17 days. Again, it had the same similar opening as Spider-Man, so you got to add a couple extra days in there, so in 19 days versus the 5 days technically that Spider-Man's been available for viewing. However, when you look at it overall, the Odyssey sits at $911.3 million, and that's pretty good. I'm going to say congratulations to Chris Nolan. You did great, and I'm not going to say anything otherwise. However, Spider-Man Brand New Day clocks in at $927 million. Now, again, look at those international numbers, and they're only going to get bigger. They are going to get more stuffed. You're going to see more and more people, because of word of mouth, go to see this film. And maybe it's not the best Spider-Man film ever. I think that Spider-Man 2, probably the best in my opinion, although Spider-Man 1 was very good. Tobey Maguire's run is almost unquestionably the best. But out of Tom's 4 films, this is the best one he's ever done. It also delivers the best financial results. Inflation Bros, you're 100% right. Compare apples to apples. But for bragging rights right now, in raw dollars at the moment, you got Spider-Man Brand New Day. And that's absolutely okay. But we need to look at the rest and the balance of the box office, because that's what this video is about. Not just about the dominance of Spider-Man crushing the Odyssey, but because of what everything else did this weekend. Now, of course, Spider-Man Brand New Day first place, the Odyssey second place. Not a surprise. The hold for the Odyssey was a lot higher than I expected. It held on 7% better than I thought it would. I kind of predicted this at about a 50% drop, but it did better than expected. Again, they locked in a lot of IMAX theaters domestically early on with the pre-sales, and those sales have actually extended out even farther than I thought. In fact, I think it goes through August 17th now. It's like another 2 weeks they've tagged on, maybe more. So Toy Story 5 coming in at a meager $6.3 million, but it made its billion. It's fine. You had Minions and Monsters coming in at $5.8 million. That's not doing as well as I anticipated. Gross here domestically is only $168 million. Moana at $5.3 million. This movie is toast. It's only got $114.7 million domestic. They spent $250 million just making that live-action Moana. Not even the, equal amount almost in promotion costs for the film. So let's just be clear on that. Now, Hadestown hung in there with an 80% drop of $2 million. And then you have The Invite, which has been one of those films where you got a tiny little release to start with, and growing to those 792 theaters, and growing that 38-day release each and every weekend to a gross of $22.7 million on a tiny little budget. Let's be honest about that. Now, we get to the new movie in the theater. I Want Your Sex. And while this is an independent film from people who, well, Chris Gore likes, this film is 3 days in release and is opening to $600,000. It opened in 8th place. It averaged $857 per screen. That's pretty good. It really is. For an independent film with a very small budget, congratulations. Young Washington still hanging in there with a massive drop, 75%, $477,000. $46 million overall, though. Congratulations. And finally, rounding out the top 10, let's just not pretend that Obsession isn't amazing, and it is at $470,000, another 70% drop, but at $262 million. And the lady that's in here, Mrs. Navarrete, Indy Navarrete, looks like she's landed a Marvel gig. It looks like she's going to be one of the X-Men, and that looks like it might be fascinating. Backrooms hanging in there, another YouTube sensation and monster at $197 million. I've got to tell you, I'm looking at the independent creators and going, hey, you guys, good job. And finally, Disclosure Day, $180,000. It's only in 217 theaters, so I can't laugh too loudly at $116 million in total domestic gross. But for 52 days of being in theaters, Spielberg looks like he lost it. Everything else is fodder, and you can go through these if you want to at your leisure. Right now, they're only reporting on the 20 of the over 30 films that are out in the theaters, and it's still giving you an enormous number, and that's all driven by Spider-Man. $428,980,000. That's what we're talking about. This is what exhibitors need, and Spider-Man swung in and defended the exhibitors' money for the first time in a long time. This film, Toy Story 5, The Odyssey, maybe a couple others, kind of made the bacon this year for exhibitors. Will there be more? Maybe one or two. Is Dune 3 going to do it for you? Maybe it will. Maybe it'll be Avengers Doomsday. Probably not. Maybe Disney's Hex somehow becomes popular with its witchcraft and weirdness and isn't just a direct ripoff of Harry Potter, which Disney would love to have stolen in the first place. Yet, I think that this weekend tells it all. Exhibitors want something big, they got it, and so did we. And at the end of the weekend, well, what else could you have hoped for? Look, I'm going to say this. I was thrilled to see Brand New Day. I enjoyed the film. Were there flaws? Yes. That's why I gave it an 8 out of 10. If you haven't seen my review, check it out right up there. I also followed my review up with another box office video with a wild projection that almost came true. We almost saw $400 million in just domestic alone this weekend. I can't wait for the revisions to see what the real numbers are. How about you? Let me know your thoughts about Spider-Man Brand New Day crushing the Odyssey down in the comments section below. And as always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya! Hopefully seeing a good movie.